All right, everybody. Welcome to episode 81 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. I'm Josh at Real Fantasy TL. I'm with my main man, Bill at Super Dupaflex. Bill, how you doing, man?
Doing good. Yeah, looking forward to the long weekend. How you doing?
Man, that weekend can't come soon enough, man. I need the 3 days to rest, recuperate, and just get my mind right after a very hectic few weeks. So I'm looking forward to it as well. So it's just you and I this week. You know, we've had a ton of guests coming in and out. We've had great people. I'm not even going to list some because I'll miss others that don't deserve it. But it's you and I. We're doing this thing, and we're gonna have a good time. We're kind of doing regular season form in the middle of the off season. So, or as our boss Dynasty Outhouse would say, the non-point scoring season. So uh, wasn't a bunch of news. Jeff Wilson got hurt, so that means your boy Trey Sermon now is a lock for 1,300 yards now that Jeff Wilson got hurt. That was actually funny because you have the people. It's funny, the Trey Sermon people were saying if you think Jeff Wilson was going to matter, you don't really love Trey Sermon, and Jeff Wilson had some production. It's you know he's not a top tier guy. He's not a guy that we're ever saying is going to be an RB1, but he was doing some things, especially late in the season, and you have to believe that he was going to be a guy that was going to take opportunity away from Sermon, whether you think he's talented or not. It's just he's proved it on the Shanahan team. So him out of the way, just means that Trey Sermon's got to beat out five more guys to be the number one there, and that's if Shanahan doesn't go out tomorrow and sign Lev Bell and Todd Gurley to the squad. So we'll see what happens with that. But since that was really the only bit of real news that happened, man, let's cut out all the pretense. We'll just kick it right into what we saw on the timeline. And this first one here is from Boyd Killingworth at Dynasty Boyd. Who would you rather own in Dynasty, DeAndre Hopkins or Jamar Chase? And I put this up here because we're not going to get to the percentages yet, but the percentages are going to lead us to another discussion. But let's go with your thoughts first. Is it the new hotness or the old vet?
Well, the easy answer is it depends on your team, right? Like I feel like the two are pretty close, value wise at least. If I'm at all like a team not in a like complete rebuild, I think I'm going Hopkins. He gets you 150 targets every year. We don't know that that's going to be the case with Chase. Maybe Chase is an efficient wide receiver on 120 targets, but it's hard to do and put up the points that Hopkins does. And the way he plays, it's not like he's like uber athletic. So I feel like he's a guy who could age pretty well. He's really reliant on those hands. We see guys with incredible hands that, they're typically the ones that can succeed longer because they're not relying on their athleticism as much. So, I think, based on the trades I saw during the draft, I think you can get Hopkins plus for Chase. I think that's the case, but I think as we get closer to the season, it'll start to head back the other direction. So I would say if there's at all a chance that I'm going to be a playoff team, I want Hopkins.
Yeah, to me, I almost feel like this isn't team dependent. Now, I will say I like how you wrapped up with your last point. I think right now we're still in the throes of rookie fever. People still have, rookie drafts left to go. I know you and I have one that we're doing together in June. and I've heard other people they still have a few left to go, so we're still in rookie season. But this is D Hop, and the reason why it's D Hop is that if you're rebuilding, I think 2-3 weeks into the season, I think D Hop nets you a bigger package of assets than unless Jamar Chase kind of hits the ground running like Justin Jefferson did starting, what was that, week 7, week 8. If he starts that way week 1, I'd have to eat my words on that. But we'll have to see what happens because, there are a lot of teams that are doing virtual OTAs and some teams are meeting in person, but some teams are doing this virtually. I'm not sure which group the Bengals fall in, but we're still kind of half in, half out on COVID times right now. We're starting to do more things, but we're still not 100% in there yet. So, we'll see what happens. But you know what? We mentioned this on the tweet going into this. We're gonna have some special guests. So we're gonna throw our first special guest up in here. Yo,
Hey,
Bobby,
Bobby?
what's going on?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah. How y'all doing?
Good. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing well.
We saw you enjoying the beach earlier today.
Yeah. Well, we made the big move down here from Columbus last year, so it's
You enjoying that?
semi-retired. Yeah, enjoying it. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, thanks.
So Bobby
gotta
is
move in
at
with Bobby.
Superflex Junkie, and we basically put an open invite to our Eliminator crew. Anybody that's in the Eliminator to come join us. So we appreciate you popping in, Bobby.
Hey, not a problem. Always glad to jump in, listen to you guys. You guys really contribute quite a bit to the fantasy community.
I appreciate that, Bobby. But before we let you in on the question, we just asked, it is Eliminator season, and Eliminator season is the start of Scott Fishbowl season.
It is.
And I love this time of year, man. I love being on Twitter and seeing everybody throw their Scott Fishbowl invite up on Twitter. Just the excitement. But besides all of that, it's for such a good cause, man. We're talking about Toys for Tots. We're talking about what is that? No Kid Hungry?
Something pantry. I can't think of what it is.
I know. I'm a terrible person for that. But I'll admit it. But
I'll look it up.
the amount of money, John Bosch kind of put screenshots of how much money is being donated just from the Eliminators alone. It's in like the $25,000 range already.
It is. It's great.
Which is amazing. Bill and I, for the second year in a row, in our own personal Eliminator, we're quote unquote auctioning off our picks. And what I mean by that is that we let the entire Eliminator know, hey, if you guys donate to a charity that means something to you, once we hit certain thresholds, we'll choose someone at random and let them make our pick for that round. So we had the 102 in the first round. Christian McCaffrey was selected for us,
which was really nice.
Which was really nice because
Thanks, Jay.
Last year we had Devin Funchess selected for us.
Right.
AB when he wasn't on a team.
AB when he wasn't on a team, and our team was so bad that we didn't even get to enjoy AB once he was on a team and was able.
Yeah, we were out week 1.
We were out week 1.
Right.
But we've had CMC. We've had CMC's quarterback Sam Darnold chosen for us. So it's a lot.
Daniel Jones.
And Daniel Jones. So we have the old New York quarterback connection that has been selected for us. But you know what? It's a lot of fun for Bill and I.
It's all about the giving,
It is. And Bill and I,
GoPantry.org is the organization. So it's
GoPantry.org, and
yeah.
I will remember that the next time we talk about this, so I don't sound like a terrible person. But yeah, Bill and I, man, we actually got this idea last year from Sal Stefanale, and then this year we were talking about it, and we're like, let's just do it again. Like, it's so much fun. People, have an opportunity to donate to charities that mean something to them. So, it's just raising money for great causes. And it makes the Eliminator a little bit more fun for us because we get to kick our feet up and picks get made for us, and we don't really have to worry about debating between each other who we like or who we don't like. Our team is our team, and we go to battle, and whatever happens, happens. But now that I did that, and we talked about that a little bit, Bobby, we had this question from Boyd here, and he's asking, who would you rather own in Dynasty? And it's he's going between DeAndre Hopkins and Jamar Chase. So, Bobby, maybe you get this offer in your inbox, Jamar Chase for DeAndre Hopkins. Who do you want?
Well, personally, I'm a big Nuke fan. So, what is he, 27 now, 28?
I believe he's 28 now. Yeah.
And I think he still has a few years left. But it depends on the team. It depends on my roster. If I'm in a situation where I really need to think about rebuilding, then I might go for Chase. But I think 9 out of 10 times I'm going with Nuke. And that's just me. But I'm not scared of the top 5 receivers, in their late 20s. I'll pick them up every time. So
sure,
yeah, I would go with Hopkins.
I think we're all on the same page then. Also, my buddy texted me earlier this week asking me why Hopkins has the nickname of Nuke. Do either of you guys know?
No. I do not.
So his mother gave it to him because that was the only brand of pacifier he would use. And that's what still is being used to this day. Isn't that crazy?
Great. That's great.
So yeah, he's like, why is that his nickname? I'm like, I Googled it within 3 seconds, sent it to him, and he's like, well, thank you for doing my research for me.
Right.
But yeah, interesting how, we get our nicknames sometimes.
And it's amazing because we're talking about, childhood nicknames and how old he is. He will be 29 on June 6th. Okay. So it's a nickname that will stick with you forever, apparently.
Yeah, next week. Happy birthday, Newt.
So so I think we all agree, but this is, and I want to give out the percentages now because this is what kind of spurred this conversation and will spur another one. 57.8% on the Jamar Chase side and 42.2% on the DeAndre Hopkins side. Right. So right now, if you have Chase and you're kind of like Bobby, like, hey, I'll take that older guy, I'll go win me a championship. You can get, Hopkins and maybe a little sweetener, maybe as Outhouse likes to say, hey, why don't you throw a third on top of that? He loves getting that extra third and just calling it a deal for a guy who, let's face it, I doubted the amount of targets he would get last year going from Houston to Arizona. I said, it's just not going to happen. There's going to be more mouths to feed. We were talking about Christian Kirk, and we were talking about, Larry Fitz can still go a little bit. Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds in the back. He got his targets. As much as we talked about he won't get as many targets, he got as many targets. And yes, I know Rondell Moore is there now.
Sorry to interrupt, Judge.
Yeah.
That chemistry between he and Kyler is just going to be that much better going into this season. And you look at a guy like Julio. What is he? 33. I think Nuke's got at least 4 more years, if not 5, left of good quality years.
Yeah.
And so I would go with him.
Yeah, and so these are the kind, and that's, people say a lot of different things about Twitter polls. They're this, they're that, but sometimes you can glean these little market inefficiencies. And I'm not saying this is going to work in every league, because obviously every league is its own marketplace, and every league, if you came to me and I had Hopkins and you said, how about Jamar for Hopkins, straight up, I'm gonna be like, nah, I'm gonna keep Hopkins. I've seen him do it, and as much as I think Jamar Chase is gonna be a baller in the league, it hasn't happened yet, and there's always that possibility that something just doesn't click and it doesn't happen. So I will take the proven product over the potential and the upside in this one. But I'll say right now, if you have Jamar Chase and you want, DeAndre Hopkins, throw it out there, see what the guy says. Maybe you can work out a deal with some parts added on, or maybe without. Maybe straight up, the Jamar Chase hype is on fire.
Yep.
So let's hit this next one from Moses Cleveland at Trader_fantasy. You have to cut one receiver. Biggest fear: whoever's cut turns out to have an incredible career.
That's so what it happens every time, right? Like that's like a psychology I think that we all kind of have a little bit, like, especially because we all have our people on our rosters, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just like, man, I know when I cut this guy, he's going to end up being what I was hoping he'd be when I put him on my team.
Right.
And it's interesting you bring up the psychology, because I have my undergrad in psychology, and there's this phenomenon where, like, something happens, one bad thing happens one time, but you remember it forever, and you remember it occurring a lot more often than it actually does. Bill, you're in a bunch of leagues. Bobby, you're in a bunch of leagues. I'm in some leagues. We've cut in our careers hundreds, if not thousands, of players. We've cut them. We've picked up whatever hotness was running around on the waiver wire. And there's probably only been a couple of times that one of those guys that we cut has really kind of risen from the ashes and kind of bitten us in the ass. But man, we don't remember the 1,000 guys that we cut that never did anything. Right. We always remember those one or two guys that, like, we cut, and it's like
this question reminds me of and I'm not a huge as a Myles Gaskin, I'm not a huge Gaskin fan, but I remember in the Bill, your league, that Superflex Army 1 that I'm in, I believe during the startup, I drafted Gaskin, like, one of the last picks, in the startup, and I held on to him all year long. That first year, it didn't do a thing, and then cut him loose, and I guess last year, sure enough, he at least helped Miami out a little bit. So
yeah, and he's definitely got value now, right? So it's like,
I believe so, yeah.
But it's hard, and that's those things, right? Like, because you got to make cuts in the off season and all of that, and it's just like you can't keep everybody. And I was in the same boat with you. Like, Gaskin was one of my late round or rookie free agent ads, and I had him on, I'd say, a quarter of my teams, and then same thing that you said, it's the off season. I got to make cuts. I got to add some of the guys that were on my IR back onto my roster, and I cut them everywhere. So I had zero Gaskin, and then by the time I could react to it, and I'm not losing. Drew in the Drew says thanks, Dad, in the chat.
Oh,
he must have added them.
He does. He's got him on another league we're in there. And in fact, it might have been the league I'm in with him, but I'm not losing sleep over Gaskin. It was just, I was trying to underscore what you were saying, Josh.
Yeah.
Of all the cuts that we make where they were good decisions and we had to do it, we always remember that one or two.
Yeah.
And Bobby, I don't blame you if you don't invite Drew over for Thanksgiving anymore after he snagged Miles Gaskin after you dropped him.
Right,
So
right,
I wouldn't
right.
blame you at all. He can eat outside on the porch. That's
Well, that's okay. I won the league last year without
okay.
Gaskin, and he didn't. So
That's right. Yeah, and that's what he just said. He just said he won the league.
right.
So I guess you can come inside, Drew. You can eat at the kid table. You don't get to the
Yeah,
adult
there you
table,
go.
but we'll meet you halfway. But yeah. So here are his options, and this is just an interesting conversation because I feel like both of these guys are very polarizing. I think you either love these guys or hate these guys. So Chase Claypool or Brandon Ayuk. So you got to cut one. Who are you cutting? Bill, let's start with you. Which one of these guys are you cutting?
I think I'm cutting. Oh, geez, that's a tough one. Like, I'm probably cutting Ayuk.
Okay.
Like, I feel like he's going to be a serviceable guy, but I think like with this, my view of wide receivers now is just that they're a dime a dozen. And like, yes, he might be like a good wide receiver for a very long time, but I feel like Claypool has the tools to be like a dominant elite wide receiver. And so he's the guy I am drawn to of the two of those guys. So I'd rather risk losing a good wide receiver, for his career to add a guy who could be a game changer for my team. So,
Right.
yeah, I think Claypool's my guy that I'm holding.
All right, Bobby. Is it Chase Claypool for you, or is it Brandon Ayuk?
Well, as Bill said, this is pretty close, at least to me. I think I could go either way. I'm before Bill said he was going to go with Claypool. I was thinking, you know what, I'd go Ayuk, and the only reason I was thinking Ayuk is because I'm a huge Trey Lance fan. I think the system out there in San Francisco. I just think Ayuk. It usually takes several years, for wide receivers to really get into their groove. It seems like, at least, to produce in fantasy, and I think I'd probably go with Ayuk. Claypool's a talent, but I think, I don't know if Ben's going to make it through this year.
That's valid.
I'm carrying Haskins on a couple teams, but I don't know. I just don't know. I think that the system out there, I would probably go ahead and hold on to Ayuk. But it's really close for me. It could go either way.
And if somebody's got to make these cuts, honestly, then they're probably either dominating their league or it's a 16-man roster.
Right.
I was actually thinking the same thing. I was like, man, is this a cut someone really has to make, or is this just a hypothetical we're throwing out there to spark conversation? But I'm going Ayuk here, and here's the reason why. I personally was not high on Ayuk pre-draft before he came out in 2020. Man, these years they just lose all meaning in COVID times. I thought he was okay. And actually, it was kind of weird that San Francisco drafted him because he seemed a little Deebo Samuel-ish to me. Like, they kind of do the same things where you can kind of put him in on those end of rounds and do those kind of trick running plays with them and so on and so forth. And I think the reason why the people who liked Ayuk have so much hope for him this year is because they're saying, well, he's proven he can produce, but George Kittle was hurt. Deebo Samuel was hurt. I mean, the 49ers were on like their fourth and fifth string running backs. I mean, they were decimated on both sides of the ball last year with injury. And I don't know if you can just predict that to happen 2 years in a row. And I think if they're healthy or mostly healthy, I think Ayuk is the third receiving option on that team. And this is a team that, Bill and I were joking about this before, or joking about this when we were talking about the Jeff Wilson news. I mean, Jeff Wilson goes down. There's still like 5 running backs that are in the mix to get touches. So there are a lot of weapons. They like to spread the ball around besides Kittle. I mean, Kittle obviously gets his, and then everyone else kind of picks up what he doesn't get. And in Pittsburgh, and I know we were saying this last year, but I don't think Juju is back in Pittsburgh after this season. The salary cap is going to go up, and somebody's going to pay him. Whether he deserves it or not, that's another conversation for another day. But somebody's going to end up paying him. And Chase Claypool could go from maybe being the wide receiver 2 or 3 on that team to the wide receiver 1 or 2, depending on how you feel about Deontay Johnson. So, yeah, give me the guy that I can kind of see, has a path to being the number 1 receiver on his team, as opposed to a guy that really the only way he becomes the number 1 receiving option on his team is if everybody gets hurt.
Did you just do a flip from the beginning of talking to the end of talking?
No, I
thought you said Ayuk at the start, so I must.
I would cut Ayuk.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah.
I misunderstood as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. I didn't talk myself in. I mean, I have done that before. I
Yeah.
have talked myself into the other side, but no, not on this one.
Yeah. When you said I'm going with Ayuk, I was thinking you meant that's who you'd want on your team, but you were saying
okay.
you would go with cutting him. Gotcha.
No. Yeah. In this scenario, if I have to pick one person to cut, I am cutting Ayuk.
Okay.
But hey, Bill, I've done it before. We've seen me do it, so I don't blame you for questioning.
Well, I mean, no, it would have been amazing because that would have been like a pretty incredible transition from the beginning to the end of that. So
I mean, look, sometimes you look at these polls and you look at these questions, and just your gut instinct says, "Hey, I'm going to go to this side of it," and then as you kind of like do a little bit more of a deep dive, maybe you look at stats, maybe you look at rosters and depth charts, whatever you look at, you go, man, my gut instinct on this was just all wrong. It really should have been the other side. And, hey, it happens sometimes. So, right. So we got that one. Let's go to Chris Moshinsky. I should actually ask Chris how to pronounce his last name since we're in an eliminator together. Sorry, Chris. At the Commish FF. So I like this one because there's a lot of moving parts here. He says, my bet is that Rodgers stays with the Packers. We're talking about Aaron Rodgers here. Julio Jones is out of Atlanta and wants to win. So why would he choose New England? He says, I'd like to see him in Indy. That would be interesting. So I want to break down each of the individual parts of this, and we'll tackle them all separately. So we'll start with this one. He says his bet is that Rodgers stays with the Packers. Bobby, do you agree with that statement, or do you think that maybe Rodgers is on the way out?
I think he's on his way out, and that's not conventional wisdom. Would suggest that he's probably going to stay, but and I'm a huge Rodgers guy. I'm the old guy. I'll take these guys, and got him from Drew in that other league. But I forget what I gave him for. I gave him last year. I gave him my 105 maybe,
Okay.
And Fitzmagic for Rodgers. I forget, but
probably
anyway,
helped you last year.
He did. He really did. And I would say that conventional wisdom says he stays, but I think he's out of there. I think he wants to be gone. I think he's some comments I just heard or read within the last day or two from Rodgers suggests that he's trying to position himself to say, hey, you know what? It's a philosophical thing with the front office. Really leveraging, and we all know he's a diva. When it comes to NFL quarterbacks, and he can be that way. I mean, he's that good. I think he got the MVP. He saw what Brady did. He's saying to himself, he looked back what Peyton Manning left Indy and went to Denver. I think he's positioning himself to move on. Now, Green Bay's got to let him go, and that's a whole nother story. But I don't know how you make it work if the guy doesn't want to be there. And so that's my take. I have no. I what do I know? But I'd say he's probably gonna end up playing somewhere else. So we'll see.
All right, Bill. He is a quarterback in your division, a rival of the vaunted Detroit Lions. So, is he staying or is he going?
So I agree with everything that Bobby says. I think that he definitely is pushing for that to happen. And I think it's all going to become a battle of wills, because I don't think, what are you going to get that's going to be worth it to move him? And that's going to be ultimately what it comes down to. And if I'm Green Bay and I'm not happy with Jordan Love, and I still feel like we have a year or two left of, truly competing or contending, then why I'm going to do everything I can to prevent him from leaving, and hope that because the team is good enough and he has seen where, they get so far into the playoffs that maybe, it's just a matter of winning a game. You're in the Super Bowl. And so I think that they're hoping that he'll calm down. And I think that, it's ultimately down to a game of chicken, right? And who's going to give first. And that I don't know the answer to. But if I was going to, I was kind of on the other side of the fence here. I think that he ends up with Green Bay, but he's doing everything he can to position himself to show hey, I got these other options, I can go do this or I can go do that. And, trying to at least, not give them a read on what he really will do if they, come to the point where he has to decide whether he plays for Green Bay or retires. So yeah, we'll see. It's really interesting. And, that's obviously going to be the biggest story this, next few months to see what happens.
Yeah, so this is a real interesting kind of scenario with Rodgers, because personally, I don't think he has much leverage in the situation. Yeah, he's unhappy. He doesn't, he doesn't like management, the GM Gutekunst, he doesn't like the way he's drafted, so on and so forth. But I mean, your contract says that you're going to be there at least this year, unless you decide to retire or something like that, which I don't think he's going to do. But, he's obviously unhappy. He's made it known he's unhappy. But I guess what he can say is, they can cut him next year for $17 million. And while that sounds like a ton of money, I mean, we've been seeing these teams pay to get rid of guys that they don't want anymore. I mean, the Eagles, I think, ponied up $30 million just to get rid of Carson Wentz. I think there was a ton of money in the Jared Goff deal as well that the Rams had to pay up. So teams, I think, are starting to treat the quarterback position kind of like they treat every other position. We'll eat a bad contract if we have to in order to get the guy off the team. So if Rodgers decides that he's just going to, do whatever he feels like doing, there were, rumors when Mike McCarthy was there that he was calling his own plays in the huddle. If he starts doing stuff like that, maybe he forces their hand and they cut him. And in that case, then they got nothing for him. I don't know. I think he stays, but I kind of flip flop on this every day. There are some days that I'm like, nah, they're going to trade him. It's just too much of a headache. And there are other days where I'm like, he doesn't really have the leverage, and he's going to stay. So
yeah, so like everything that's like factual is the leverage is on Green Bay's side. Like they have 3 years of him under contract. They have a successful team where they think, they're hoping he stays so they can still compete. And then his are all, get bent, and it like is either I'm going to retire, which is not a positive thing for him, or he has to look like an ass by, basically imploding his situation. So, I mean, looking at it that way, like if we're just going conventional wisdom, like Bobby said, or logically, thinking that process out, I think Green Bay looks like the favorite, here. But, sometimes you got to just say, hey, this guy gave us X number of years of great service. Maybe we just need to respect his, desire to leave teams and do that.
Well, and I'm also curious because Bobby brought up, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning technically gets cut by Indy and then goes to Denver, wins a Super Bowl. His situation was a little different. He had just gotten the neck surgery. Indy was unsure of what he was going to be. Plus, they had the number 1 pick, and that happened to be Andrew Luck. But this kind of mirrors the Tom Brady situation a little bit, where things were leaking in the press that Brady and Belichick were not getting along. They weren't agreeing on stuff. They finally told Brady to kick rocks, and he goes to Tampa Bay and wins a Super Bowl. And as much as we like to look at this logically, and we like to believe that people that work in NFL front offices are robots and machines, and emotion doesn't play into any decision that they make, it's just not true. And I wonder if, the higher ups there are worried that maybe Aaron Rodgers, gets cut after this year, or maybe he plays out another 2 years, but then goes somewhere else and wins a bunch of championships, and they got nothing for him. So it'll be interesting because there's so many little wrinkles on both sides. Aaron Rodgers didn't show up to OTAs, which he's always done. He's vacationing in Hawaii with his girlfriend, fiance. I'm not sure what she is exactly, but his partner. And, he's just like, yeah, I'm in Hawaii chilling while you guys are in Green Bay, busting your ass. So he's already kind of starting to take the steps to show the team that, he's going to do, what he has to do contractually, but everything else he's going to be out on. So that's going to be an interesting one. But now let's move it to the second part of Chris's tweet here. He believes that Julio Jones is out of Atlanta, and he wants to win. So why would he choose New England? He'd like to see him in Indy. So before we get into that, let's add our boy, our DAP Network brother, Rocky at Dynasty FF Addict. You know him from probably any podcast that you listen to. He hosts them all now at this point. He technically hosts this one too, but he just shows up when he wants to. So, Rocky, how you doing, man?
Hey, good. How's it going, guys? You sent out the open invite, so I figured I wanted to hop on before the end of the show. I am not alone in this room, so if my son is making too much noise in the background, let me know and I'll get the hell out.
That's a fair deal there. So Rocky, we were just talking about Chris's tweet. Chris had a multi-layered tweet here, but the part of it we're talking about right now is Julio. He believes that Julio's out of Atlanta. He's going to be gone. And he asked why he would choose New England. Now, my thing is that I doubt highly Atlanta is cutting him, so the choice may not be his to have, even though, we all heard about the phone call on Undisputed with Shannon Sharp. He wants out of Atlanta. He doesn't want to go to Dallas. So
I must say I did enjoy that part.
I mean, that's fine. We got 3 receivers. What the hell?
I'm sure he doesn't want to come to Philly either, though. So
I mean, I heard that and I was just like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Why would you want to deal with, Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, and Michael Gallup? I mean, it just personally would make sense to me if I was a receiver that still thinks that, I'm a top 10 guy. I wouldn't want to have to deal with all that. But so I don't think the choice would be his, but Rocky, I'll start with you. Do you think Julio is out of Atlanta? And if you do think he's out of Atlanta, where do you think he's showing up?
I do think he's out of Atlanta. I mean, the stories have come out that he wants to be out of Atlanta, and it makes too much sense for them not to get rid of him too. I mean, they can't sign all their draft picks right now. I mean, I think another story came out that they either have to cut or restructure him or trade or restructure him, or either him or Grady Jarrett on defense to even be able to sign their draft picks. So I definitely think he's out. I think it's just a matter of waiting until after June 1st so that the cap hit is lessened. I don't know where. I mean, the place that makes the most sense with everything. I don't know if it makes sense cap. Well, there's 2 places actually then, because one makes more sense cap wise. But the place I'd love to see him go is Tennessee, because he said he wants to win. That makes sense in that regard, and they could certainly use another receiver. It'd be nice for fantasy. I could definitely see him on the other side, with AJ Brown. And then the other place that sprung to mind immediately for me was the Colts, where they do have the cap space, also not exactly loaded at receiver, and also primed to win. So I mean, those seemed like 2, and they get some out of the NFC as well. If they actually think they're going to be winning anything this year, they probably don't want him in the NFC anyway.
No, so I like that. So according to Rocky, he's out, and it would be nice to see him in Tennessee or in
Indy.
Indy. Boy, I just totally mind blanked on that. All right, Bobby, is Julio staying in Atlanta or is he going somewhere else?
Boy, I tend to lean with you, Josh, and feel like I don't really know. I kind of sense that Atlanta would be stupid to let him go, and hold on to him. And it's gonna come down to cap space, like Rocky was saying. I don't think Tennessee, they're gonna have to get pretty thrifty if they're going to be able to squeeze them in there. Indy could probably do it, but I don't know. I guess he could end up in Cleveland or I guess New England. But I tend to think he's going to stay. Not that he necessarily wants to, but he might not have a choice. It depends on what the front office in Atlanta does, I guess. I say he stays in Atlanta.
All right. So we got 1 for, 1 against. Bill, is he staying or is he going?
I think that both sides kind of want him to go, just based on the finances, and he wants to go. So I don't think they necessarily want him to go, but I think they understand that they need to. I thought that the Browns were an interesting one, but I don't know how their salary cap is. It looks like they got like 21 million.
Yeah, I was looking at that myself, and that
would be really interesting. Like, I mean, like that's kind of like a dark horse one. I kind of would be interested in seeing that. I wonder if OBJ gets cut or something then. Or if they have the 3 of them, the 2 of them and Jarvis out there, that would be super interesting and fun to watch. Indy also, I mean, I like that idea. That would be a lot of fun, having Pittman, maybe Paris Campbell, kind of in the middle, and Julio on the other side. Take a lot of pressure off of your second year wide receiver. So that would be pretty interesting as well. Of course, the Titans are the one that everybody kind of wants because AJ Brown's been so outspoken
I was just gonna
about
say,
it.
including AJ Brown.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm kind of looking at the teams that have a lot of space. I mean, it's the Jags. I don't see them doing it. I don't see him wanting to do that. The Browns make a lot of sense. The Chargers, that could be interesting. They're right around the same spot as the Bills. That would actually be a lot of fun. Julio on one side, you got Keenan. Oh, geez. That would be some fun. So there's some interesting ones out there. And I would love to see him go somewhere where there's a pretty solid offense. So as much as exciting as the Browns are, I think the Chargers would be more interesting for me, I think.
Right.
So Bill stole my thunder because I was looking up teams available cap space, and I was like,
well, I just rattled off half the NFL, so it's easy to do that.
That's fine. I while you were talking, I found another team that you didn't rattle off. So
cool.
But yeah, I looked at Cleveland, and I didn't realize they had $21 million in available cap space. So I was like, okay, that would be interesting. But Bill stole that one. Julio's a funny one because I feel like I think it was either Bill or Bobby said, I think Julio wants to be gone, and I think Atlanta wants him to be gone.
Bill said that. Yeah.
I'm wondering if the trade compensation is going to be the biggest thing that actually holds this whole thing up. Because, all the reports are out there. They want a first round pick. All right. No one's giving you a first round pick. I think we all know that. That's the starting point, in the negotiation. We do it when we make trades. We might send that first offer, that obviously leans in our direction, and it's the starting point so that we can get, to the middle. But, what if, they're really looking for a second and no one's going to offer that? Is that going to prevent them from getting this contract out, or are they going to be so locked in? And the issue is that this is a brand new general manager, so we don't know what his style is. We don't know what his thought process is.
I don't know, Josh. It'll come down to what you can get for him. But the thing I don't really know on a personal level is what their front office is looking at. Is how important is it for them to unload that $66 million that he's gotten over 3 years to, is that something that's going to free them up in such a way that they're willing to maybe take a little bit less in a trade or something along those lines? So that's where the rubber's going to hit the road, I think. And I don't know. It's seems like he could really benefit their team, especially as Pitts comes on, and it doesn't put a whole lot on Pitts that first year, because they've got Ridley and Julio. So I don't know, but they might just want it, like Bill said, that maybe both sides want him gone. I kind of think, well, I don't know. We'll see. Rocky, you're the one who said after the 1st of June, we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah, and I don't think they're going to get more than a third just because of his age and that contract. I think you're topping out at a third.
And that's kind of what I was thinking too. Take your third and go. But if they're dead set on we're not taking anything less than a second, it's okay. And this is a really weird situation because everything Atlanta has done this offseason has led everyone to believe that they're making a last ditch effort to try to win something. I mean, they've restructured Matt Ryan's contract. they draft Pitts at 4 instead of maybe taking the QB of the future. So trading Julio away is kind of counterproductive to the we're all in strategy. But this is why I'm like, really, I don't know that which is my answer, and it's a lame answer, and I get it, but like you can argue this from both sides real easily. But I think a team that would be interesting to see Julio go to, since Bill stole Cleveland from me, is San Francisco.
I didn't know you were going to go with San Fran or the Cardinals, and you went with San Fran there.
San Fran, he can go there. Kittle is the monster as long as he's healthy. But Julio would be the number one receiver on that team walking in the door. So, and I mean, yeah, they got wrecked by injuries last year, which led them to, a not that great record. But 2 years ago, they were in the Super Bowl. So they're not a bad team if they can stay relatively healthy. And I think Julio just kind of helps, bring that along. And let's face it, if the game plan is to have Trey Lance start after the first month or two of the season, whatever their plan for Lance is, why don't you just give him a big ass receiver that, catches everything except for touchdowns, and just make that transition a little bit easier for Lance.
I was gonna say, if Julio goes there, I mean, what happens to Lance's value? Because he's already QB 10 in ADP, which I think is ridiculous.
QB1 with a bullet.
Yeah, is he QB 2? I mean, what the hell?
He's better than Mahomes.
He just went 101 today in a rookie draft that started today for me.
That's not. I think you said that in one of our chats, and then the guy at 102 was upset about it or something.
Yeah, he ended up taking Lawrence, but
poor guy.
Yeah, what a crappy consolation prize. Guy gets Trevor Lawrence at 102. I haven't seen Trevor Lawrence anywhere but 101 in any of my rookie drafts, and this guy,
unless the first drafter has like 4 picks or something like that.
Right,
J Mike Invitational.
Yeah.
112.
By the way, shameless plug for that. If you still haven't watched that, go to J Mike at J Mike Check and just check that out. It'll take you like 10, maybe 15 minutes to watch the whole thing.
That was a lot of fun.
It is freaking gold. It is. J Mike did an amazing job with that. He made it fun. I love Russ talking about the fact that it messed up the Trade Addicts ADP, but it's so much fun.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
It's so much. He says that in everything that he does, that he takes that draft out of his ADP because it just everything is wonky. But yeah, I mean, you know what? J Mike worked. That's a lot of work to get every pick. So he deserved to have as much fun with it as he did. So if you like to laugh and you like to see somebody really just have some fun with something, check that out. You'll enjoy it. So all right, so we got a couple people saying he's gone. We have someone saying he's staying. We got me who doesn't know what to say, but then we got some fun teams that would be interesting to see him show up and ball out. And if he does get traded, the landing spot is going to be so interesting to determine on whether his value goes slightly up or slightly down, because I don't think any situation, kind of rockets him up. I think his value is kind of what it is due to, his age. So, but it'll be fun anyway. But
I agree with Rocky though about the third. It's not just his age, but he has trouble staying on the field as well. So,
yeah. And Chris mentions here why would he choose New England? And I mean, I think that's a valid point. I mean, not that he has a choice in the matter, but if he got traded to New England, I don't think. I mean, he says he wants to win, so. What do we predict for New England? What do they top out at? Maybe 9 wins.
Yeah, I
And
mean, unless in Julio's mind, he just equates Belichick with winning it despite Cam and last year.
yeah, I mean, and your choices in that situation is like, all right, so what if Cam is just toast? All right, so then you go to Mac Jones, and we haven't seen Mac Jones do a damn thing in the league yet. So as much as we want to say he processes like Brady and all, listen, Tom Brady is, we've been
It, it,
calling Kyle Pitts a unicorn. Tom Brady is a unicorn in the fact that like the dude doesn't run, but he's mentally just superior. The way he processes the game and the way he watches film and the way he breaks things down is like very few people on this planet can do. And to just say that Mac Jones can walk in day one and do that, I think is a very tall order.
that's what I was going to say. Even if Mac Jones ends up by some miracle being as good as Tom Brady, I doubt he's going to be that good in 2021.
Exactly,
Yeah.
because let's face it, Tom Brady was, second and third string quarterback for 2 or 3 years before he even stepped onto a field. So he needed that time to season. And Mac Jones, I think, will need some of the same. I think he'll need some time to get acclimated to the NFL. So, yeah, if I was Julio, I wouldn't want to get traded to New England either. All right, so let's hit this next one here. This is from our boy from the FTC. What's the FTC? The Fantasy Timeline Chat. If you want to be in it, Rocky's in it, Bobby's in it, we're in it. It's always fun. We're always talking about different things. We're usually during the draft, it was fun. We were usually talking about someone going to Atlanta during the draft and messing with Justin. So that was fun. But Short Logic says, don't worry about overpaying, and he puts that in quotes, for a player during an auction, waiver claim, or trade. Every player that is won an auction or waiver claim was won by someone willing to pay more than everyone else in that league. You have to overpay to get anyone. It's just how it is. So I thought that was interesting because the term overpay to me is it almost doesn't hold meaning, because what I consider an overpay, you may consider to be value, or you may consider to be underpaying for that guy, because we all value players differently. Rocky and I will have a good time going back and forth on different players. He values a guy more than I do, or I value someone more than he does. And it's always good to have those debates. Bill and I do the same thing damn near every week on this show because, Trey Sermon is Barry Sanders Jr.
Because you love Joe Flacco.
Hey, listen, statistically better than Sam Darnold last year. So, we have those, discussions too. We just all value guys differently, and, I'm sure Bobby and I could get into discussions about guys that we value differently. So the term overpay is it almost is meaningless, because you may look at someone that I traded for and say I overpaid for him, and I may look at the same trade and say, I think that's what his value is. I think I paid what the value is. So do you
I think overpay is based off of groupthink. Like, so whatever Twitter says value is, like, I think that's everything that the word overpay is based off of.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's a great way to define the word overpay in this situation. But I think, I can speak for all of us, and if I'm wrong, you can let me know. I think we're all willing to, at least in our minds and based on our values, overpay for someone if we really like them. If there's a guy that we're like, this is my guy, we're willing to overpay, and a lot of times what we consider overpays now are underpays 2 years from now. I mean, think about people who were, taking, I'm trying to think of a guy off the top of my head, and I probably shouldn't have done that because it's not coming to me. But Josh Allen. I mean, in rookie drafts, Josh Allen was dropping to bottom of the first, top of the second, even in super flex drafts. And now, and by the way, the people that were taking Josh Allen were getting laughed at for taking him where they took him. And now, in startups, Josh Allen is, 102, 103. He's not even making it to the second round of startup drafts. So, what do you guys think about that? Do you think you have to overpay to get your guy? Anybody can start.
I'm willing to overpay to get my guy, but I don't think you have to. I don't think I forget what the exact quote you said, SureLogic said, but I don't think you're overpaying for anybody that you get or whatever it is he said. But I'm definitely, I think I kind of did. We talked about on Trade Addicts this week. I traded Joe Mixon for Deontay, which is all our guys,
Yep.
and a little plus. And I think everybody was kind of on the Mixon side, but I'm a huge Deontay guy. I wanted to get him. I don't know that I have a real contending team in that league anyway. Joe Mixon's a 25-year-old running back, but I think market value, Twitter value, I probably paid too much. The guy I got with him was Denzel Mims, which is sort of whatever. So I think the value probably wasn't enough by a lot of people's mind, but in my mind it was. So did I overpay? Maybe, but it was worth it to me.
And it's funny because, and none of us know the future, but 2 years from now, Deontay could be, the wide receiver one in Pittsburgh, still getting 130, 40, 50 targets, whatever he gets. And, Joe Mixon is on another team as a backup, maybe, because, like you said, he's already a 25-year-old running back. And as much as, we're fine with our 27, 28, 29-year-old wide receivers, those 26, 27-year-old running backs usually hit that wall and, aren't producing what you want them to. And, 2 years from now, we could talk about the same trade and be like, Rocky fleeced this guy. All he had to do was give up Joe Mixon and he got Deontay Johnson plus. So, I like that. Or Bobby, Bill, whoever wants to go next.
Yeah, I agree with what Rocky said. It's the same as like in a startup snake draft. I mean, if your guy, you got to take your guy a little earlier than because he's not going to be there when you come around in the next round or something, then you do it. And it's all relative in an auction draft. If you pay a little bit more because that's the guy you want to get, you do it. So I guess overpay, the term, I think it is kind of relative in a sense that like what Bill was saying, it's kind of a group think. That's where the term, it's whatever Twitter says perhaps, but I don't know. We've all done it, and if it's the player that you want to acquire, I see nothing wrong with it, and so I guess I forget the question or the statement that you read, but I guess I agree. That it is. I don't really like the term overpay because I don't consider it. I think that's what you're saying, Josh.
Yeah.
I don't consider it overpaying if we think the value's there.
Right.
And so.
Yeah, and like it's interesting because like early on I would go onto Reddit and read Dynasty and the values are so grossly different. Like if you go to Reddit and then if you go to Twitter.
Yeah.
And so that tells you right there that there is a lot of groupthink when you get all these people together and they're all discussing it and it's the same opinions getting, pushed. And so as much as like, and I always see like these questions on Twitter, like, what do we think?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, see, the problem is you're going to everybody else to make your decision. So you got to be critically, think critically and just make the decision on your own, because as much as maybe Rocky or Josh or Bobby really believes in certain players, So they want to grab those individuals. Whereas I'm like a guy who will go, I'm always going to buy somebody who I think is like, this isn't an auction, like just who might be going 25% less than a particular player, but I feel like there are similar players. So then I feel like I quote unquote underpaid there. But it ultimately it's just, I agree with the comment that there is no overpay. If that's what you're willing to pay. And I think that was his point more so.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of, I agree with that. It's just once everybody gets caught up in like what consensus says or a trade calculator says or ADP says, or, there's so many different things that people base their values off of. And you have to have a standard like value just to like have conversation. I get that, but like you do also have to think critically for yourself and make those decisions.
Yes.
And everybody started talking once. The other thing I was just going to say is the other thing too is, I mean, Twitter's not in your league. Like what could seem like an overpay is every league is its own market. I had recently did another trade that a lot of people I think might consider an overpay where I traded Chase Claypool for Tom Brady. And I tried to sell Claypool for more younger, more fluid. I tried to get draft picks. I tried to move up in the draft, the rookie draft with them. I tried other things. Nobody seems to want Chase. I thought Chase Claypool had some hype around him, but nobody seems to want him right now. So, and of course, my quarterbacks are kind of iffy the way that my quarterbacks usually are.
Dumpster fire.
I wouldn't say dumpster fire, but not great. So I figured I'd take Brady. I do have a contending team otherwise, and I got a quarterback without giving one up, so it was worth it to me. And but yeah, I mean, every league is its own market is mainly the main point I wanted to make. So I mean, that it might seem like an overpay, but nobody was paying anything for Claypool, so to me, it was worth it.
Right.
And by the way, Rocky, you got a lot of crap for that deal. I won a 16-team super flex with Tom Brady as my only legitimate quarterback, and then just kind of piling in things in that super flex spot. So I'm with you in a super flex league.
Yep.
And who knows? I mean, at this point, Tom Brady will probably play longer than Chase Claypool anyway. So
yeah, I have my quarterback now for the next 5 years. So
well, I think I did an overpay. I might have been in your league. I think it was in this Superflex Army 1. I acquired Brady. I've got Murray and I've got Watson, and of course Watson with the whole thing. I had Dalton, but one of the guys who took one of the orphans who came in, I went ahead and was able to acquire Brady from him, but I probably overpaid in most people's eyes. I gave up Cooper Kupp and Dalton, so. But this is a league where having a starting QB period is gold.
Mm-hmm.
I only play Superflex except for a home league, a redraft league, and this is that Superflex Army 1 league is the hardest one I have found to acquire quarterbacks in. It's so. To me, it wasn't really an overpay because I needed that safety valve, with Watson, the drama. I'm treating Watson. I've got Watson on every team every league that I'm in, and I'm treating.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I did well last year, in a lot of the league, in a lot of these leagues. It wasn't just Watson, but the thing is I'm treating him as if he's a season-ending injury.
Yeah.
Yep. I think that's the right thought process.
That's the way I'm going to treat him, but yeah, overpay. I don't know if I really like that term that much. So.
And look, Bill, I'll wrap it up with this. Bill and I joke around all the time about Trey Sermon, but we obviously have different feelings on him. We could both look at the same trade, Bill and I, and it deals with Trey Sermon, and Bill could be like, you know what, I think this is appropriate value, and I'm going to be like, you paid too much. I mean, and
you're like Rocky, man. You just keep putting words in my mouth, like Like,
wait,
what
wait,
was
wait.
Rocky saying? Like,
You said
Trey Sermon, no matter what.
You said Trey Sermon would have 1,300 yards. I feel like
you made a comment because you didn't like Trey Sermon, and I go watch Trey Sermon get 1,300 yards. I didn't say he was going to.
And
I
then
was
you bet
joking
it,
because
so
you hated
think
him
he
so
is.
much.
You bet it, so you have to think he
I
is.
didn't bet anything. You said, well, how am I? I'm not even involved in the bet. Your bet was if he did 1,300 yards, I'll wear this.
Well. I think Sermon's going to do well. Of course, I bleed scarlet and gray, so.
All right.
But
a lot of good running backs have come from that school. That can't be argued. So,
well, this kid Mitchell, watch out for him. He could, but I think Sermon's going to dominate that backfield by the end of the year.
He's already got Jeff Wilson out of the way.
Yeah. You caught him in the back of the leg, didn't
you?
I don't own one share of Trey Sermon. I wish I did.
Yeah, I don't either.
Me neither.
I will not. So that's
I don't have any running back outside of Najee Harris, from all of my rookie drafts. So
all right, we're gonna speed round this last one so we can get out of here. This is from Jacob Vines at jsnake_DFF. Who do you think can be the next Darren Waller, Logan Thomas, Robert Tonyan type tight end this year? I'm talking someone you can pick up off the waiver wire right now. So just hit us with a name and we'll roll out on that. And that's a tough one because I usually play in some pretty deep leagues.
Yeah.
So the guys on the waiver wire. So I won't go waiver wire, but someone that you can probably acquire for pretty cheap. If they're not on your waiver wire. Who wants to start?
Well, I'm a Jarwin fan. I think Blake Jarwin is gonna have a big year. He's probably not a waiver wire.
No.
Yeah, definitely not.
But I think you can get him for cheap.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah. I would say cheapish. So it's probably not a great answer, but that was the first thing that jumped out of my head. Is I think he's gonna really have the year he should have had last year.
All right. Who's next?
The first one that popped into my head is also not a waiver wire guy, but probably someone you can get fairly cheap. And he's not going to be Waller, Logan Thomas good, I don't think. But Anthony Ferkser is the one that occurred to me. There's not much else there in Tennessee, as we talked about earlier. He's basically him and A.J. Brown and Josh Reynolds and some rookies. So, and it's not like Derrick Henry's racking up catches either. So the volume has to go somewhere. So I could see him being much more of a viable guy, but I don't see him going into that elite range. But definitely a guy who could finish maybe, if everything breaks right, as like a mid tight end one.
All right, Bill.
Yeah, so for waivers, I'm kind of trying to dig deep. Since I plugged this, I put this question on there, but it's not super deep. But I think Dan Arnold's an interesting one. You can get him for super cheap. Carolina, Ian Thomas really never did anything. Maybe Dan Arnold's a wide receiver converted to tight end. So, maybe there's something there. A young player that I'd be interested in seeing how he develops because he looked really good his rookie year is Harrison Bryant. Is it Harrison? I always which Bryant? Yeah,
the one in Cleveland is Harrison.
Yeah, and just because they like to run two tight end sets, I think Hooper's definitely going to be there, but I think Bryant was interesting and he showed enough as a rookie that I'm intrigued by him moving forward. But I don't think he has the chance to be anything like these other guys. I think Dan Arnold really being the only receiving option is somebody I would be more interested in for this year for like ceiling, even though the likelihood of it happening is quite low.
Well, Bill, and the question is too, is, we're talking about, Logan Thomas and Robert Tonyan of last year. I'm sure if we had talked about those guys last year, you probably would have said the same thing.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't really see it happening, but I guess it could. So I am going to go waiver wire because Bobby actually took my Blake Jarwin. Blake Jarwin was going to be.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry.
God.
I was trying to leave. I was trying to leave
Homer.
Mo Alley Cox out there for you.
Listen, you made me do a little extra work, and I'm glad that you did because I am going to go with a guy that you probably can get off your waiver wire unless you are really, in some deep rookie drafts. It's actually Logan Thomas's teammate, Samus Reyes. He is a 6'5" ex-Chilean basketball player who the Reds they're not that anymore. The football team signed through the International Pathway Program. We know that Fitzmagic, he loves to just chuck it in the air and see what happens. And being a 6'5" basketball player with some good footwork may lead to a breakout. Probably won't. But if we're going to go deep dive and we're going to go into guys that we're not talking about, Samus Reyes, he's probably on your waiver wire. And if that, you're just looking for a shot in the dark lottery ticket, why not get a guy who's 6'5" and used to play basketball?
Yeah, and I think his athletic testing was like off the charts.
Oh,
like,
insane. Insane.
And one other possible waiver wire guy I did think of while you guys were talking, and this would probably require an injury to Jared Cook, but Donald Parham in San Diego. San Diego, Jesus, I'm old. Los Angeles.
Listen, I almost said something, so we're at the end here.
Yeah, the Chargers. Let's just go with that.
Yeah. So we got some good ones, guys. You could probably trade for cheap, or guys that you can find on your waiver wire. So want to thank Bobby for coming on. Want to thank Rocky for coming on. We threw the invite. These guys, the smart Dynasty minds, just jumped up and helped us out, made the show that much better. Want to thank the chat. Chat was going off. Drew was going back and forth about taking Myles Gaskin, but then losing the league. So that was some fun back and forth. Thank you for everyone who watched us on YouTube. Remember to subscribe and hit the bell when you so you know when we're ready to go. Everyone listening to podcast form, thank you. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you tell everybody you know about it. And on that note, Bill, we are out of here.
Thanks, guys.
Late.